specifically in this day and time, there is a need to mention what some women do when they begin to understand some obligations in Islam. And this is it's a very repugnant affair. It is when some sisters get information about Islam and they learn of the obligation of proper hijab, and so they begin to adorn themselves with the beauty of obedience to Allah Azza wa Jal in the way that's befitting, and they dress properly and modestly. But however, they begin to make mockery of the sisters who have not reached that level. This is very important. They were just yesterday on the level of those sisters that they're mocking. And now they are mocking sisters who have not reached the level that they just themselves have reached. They should, as we have mentioned, if they have knowledge that someone else doesn't have, or ignorant, and they don't understand the obligation of wearing proper hijab, then they are patient and they do not mock the ignorant sisters. Rather, they advise them and they teach them and they share their knowledge that they have. And they want for their sisters what they want for themselves. They do not go and say, look at those sisters not wearing niqāb. How can they go around not covering their faces? Look at them, how they just walk around with their faces exposed, trying to get all the men to look at them. And they say such statements, and they'll hurt the feelings of sisters who have come a long way to cover everything but their face. Coming from a non-Muslim society, some women have accepted Islam, and it was a big step to already get to the point where they're wearing a jilbab now, and they're wearing proper hijab, except that they haven't covered their hands and their faces. So, they have achieved a great amount of progress, and with that, you find some Muslim sisters with poor manners, violating this order, scoffing at the sisters who have not yet made it to that level where they will cover their face with a niqāb or cover their hands with gloves. And piety, if the wearing of a niqāb on a sister's face and gloves is piety, then let it be accompanied with the proper manners. Let it be something that shows piety, not only just in dress, but in action and in deed. So that the sisters who have reached that level, may Allah bless them, let them continue on with other deeds of piety and obedience to Allah Azza wa Jal by teaching their sisters and being patient with their sisters and not mocking other sisters. And we have witnessed some very bad things on the internet with basically groups of sisters who get together because they wear niqāb. They call themselves maybe niqābi for life, niqābi forever, niqābi 2007, and they have groups where they get together, and the thing that binds them with the other sisters is niqāb, face veil. Whereas the scholars have differed about the issue of the face veil being an obligation or a recommendation, and the majority of the scholars of past and present have held that it is not an obligation, that it's a recommendation for a woman to cover her face. And it is the majority position of this day and time of the scholars of Saudi Arabia that the woman has to cover her face and hands. However, the Hanbalis of old and the scholars traditionally have not held such a strong position towards covering the face and hands, as explained in great detail by one of the scholars of this time, Muhammad Nasruddin al-Albani, may Allah have mercy on him, in a number of his writings on the subject. So the point is here, the sisters who are wearing niqāb, you are not tied to your other sisters in Islam except by way of the correct aqeedah and the correct manhaj. Not by a garment, not because you cover your face. And so sisters who do not cover their face, who are Salafi, who have the correct aqeedah and the correct manhaj, and they love the scholars just like you, and they love knowledge, and they love the Qur'an, and they love the Sunnah, but they have understood from their studies in Islam that the face veil is not wajib. You do not shun them and keep them out of your group, and don't let them join your mailing list, and consider them to be less than you because of your wearing the niqāb. Then you have fallen into the prohibition mentioned in this ayah, that you are a group of women mocking and ridiculing another group of women, and it may be that the other group is better than you. The other group who are not covering their faces, perhaps they are better than you. They're not mocking anyone, and they are perhaps practicing everything they know in the deen to be correct, while you are contradicting what you know from this ayat by mocking another group of sisters. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless our sisters in Islam, to behave with the best of manners, and to allow them to see these kind of infractions and correct themselves, just like we ask Allah to bless ourselves and to increase us in proper actions and conformity to the proper moral codes that He has taught us in the Quran.